Okay, 8.3 day one, we're talking about multiplying binomials. Binomials means that you have bi like bicycle, means you have two terms inside of the parentheses. Before we worked with factoring the past couple of days, we spent time revisiting the distributive property, which was where we learned to take 7x times everything here, and we did 7x times 3x, which is 21 with 2x's, plus 28 with 1x. Again, hopefully you got that under control before today, because if not, then you're going to be having some just slight issues with that, but again, you can get that understood. One way that I try to imagine the distributive property is people shaking hands. So in other words, 7x shook hands with 3x, and that produced 21x squared. 7x shook hands with 4, which made 28x. In this scenario, the values inside the parentheses are already friends, which is why they don't shake hands with each other. So what that does for me is it helps me to organize what's going on, and helps me not to do 7x times 3x, 7x times 4, 3x times 4. You understand that 7x is just going to meet both of them. So looking at it from more of a realistic perspective, just for a moment, so we can kind of transition to what we're doing today. In this situation, Brett and Wes are already friends. Sam wants to meet them, so what you would have is Sam meeting Brett, and, which means plus, Sam meeting Wes. And again, that would be the two handshakes. Again, we've done that part already. We've got that idea. Notice how easy it is to imagine the meetings and how much it organizes our thought process. Today's work, though, is going to look more like this. Nat and Kim, Shay and Liz. Again, you've got Nat and Kim that are friends in this parentheses. You've got Shay and Liz that are friends in this parentheses. And so it's not just a matter of one person shaking hands. It's going to be something where you have to be more organized. So what I usually do is I start from one person and have them meet both. So in other words, Nat meets Shay, and Nat meets Liz, and because we still got one person who hasn't introduced themselves, Kim meets Shay, and Kim meets Liz. So when you have two people meeting two people, the number of handshakes is now going to get a little bit more complex. But again, hopefully you want to use the meetings idea, because again, what it does for you is it allows you to imagine Nat meets Shay, Nat meets Liz. You can put that down, then Kim's going to meet both people, and you put that down and you just simplify it. So again, the reason it helps to imagine values as people making introductions is because it helps us to keep track of who should be meeting whom. In the above example, our common sense keeps us from thinking that Nat needs to meet Kim because they're already friends. It also keeps us from thinking that Shay needs to meet Liz because they're already friends. So whatever system you use is up to you, but after that, it just comes down to your execution. Many students learn how to organize their thoughts at some point, but again, the problem is that they're not careful with the execution of the process, and because mistakes are the best way to learn, I think it's best if we just go ahead and work out a few examples and get to the work for today, because that is probably the best way for us to get ready for it. Anyway, we now have 2y minus 9 and y plus 3. There are two ways to do this. I'm going to work out the first one, and again, if you're not great with numbers, I recommend you use this way all the way through. After that, I'm probably not going to use it because, I want to show you both ways, but again, if you know that you are not as strong with this, then you should probably use this. What I'm going to do is show the actual meeting. So 2y meets y, and 2y meets 3. And again, I always use a plus. This, have to be careful, is a negative 9 meeting y, and is a negative 9 meeting 3. From there, all you do is go ahead and simplify it. So this is 2y squared. That is a positive 6y. This is a negative 9y, and that is a negative 27. And the last thing you have to look out for is the combining of terms. So you end up with 2y squared minus 3y minus 27 as your answer there. So again, the thing to look out for is the combining of terms in this, making sure you always go back to here and make sure there's not two things you can put together. Looking at B, again, in this case, I'm just going to work them out the way that I know how, or the way that you'll eventually do it. But again, if you need to show the meetings to get it right, please just make sure you do it right. The whole point of the quiz is not to show you can finish the quiz in 5 minutes. It's to make sure you get as high of a score as you can, which means that time should not be an issue. Please don't rush through this stuff and make sure you take your time on it. In here though, what I do is I still write the lines in x meeting x, but then I look and say that's x meeting x, which makes x squared. And then I draw my other line. And I don't just draw the lines first, which is what a lot of people do, but then you have to kind of follow. When I draw the line, that's the meeting that I have. So when x meets 7, I get a positive 7x. Here, when 8 meets x, I get a positive 8x. Here, when 8 meets 7, I get a positive 56. And again, looking back, there are like terms here, giving us x squared plus 15x plus 56. So again, just making sure you put your like terms together. Please don't stop early. Every time you do any kind of distributive property with binomials or multiplying of binomials, you want to make sure you check to see if there's anything that can be put together. Now sometimes nothing can be put together, but a lot of times whenever you do distributive property, you can combine like terms, so just be careful. Looking here again, 3w meets 2w, giving us, again, looking here at just these two numbers, that makes 6 because 3 times 2 with 2 w's. Don't always put a plus in this situation. Up here I said to always connect with a plus, but whenever you do it this way, I recommend you don't, because you don't know what your next sign is going to be, because in this case, when 3w meets negative 5, it's going to be negative because that's a positive times a negative. 3 times 5 makes 15 with a w. When 7 meets 2w, you end up with a positive 14w. And then when 7 meets negative 5, you end up with a negative 35. From that point, we see that these two things are here, so you get 6w squared minus 1w, which don't leave the 1 there, especially on the computer, because I know that it does not like those 1s, and then minus 35. Again, the key there is that if you're typing this into the computer, typing that 1 is probably going to get you marked wrong, because they don't like the 1s in front of variables, and I think it's a cruel way to kind of teach you not to, but I think it's still good for you, because you will figure it out at some point that you don't want to put that 1 there. And then the last one, 3y meets 2y, making 6 with 2y's or y squared. 3y meets 4 is going to be negative, because that's a positive times a negative. 12 because of 3 times 4 with 1y. 7 meets 2y, making a positive 14y. And then 7 meets negative 4, making a negative 28. Putting your like terms together, you end up with 6y squared, because that has nothing to go with. This makes a positive 2y, and then minus 28. Alright? So again, take your time today. Don't rush through it. I know some of you are so worried about finishing the homework, but let me tell you the truth in terms of my class. I'm really not being so tough on how far you get. I just want to make sure you actually practice it right. So rushing through it is not going to be good for you. Just make sure, again, you're learning the material, because I'm more worried about your big quiz score than I am about your homework. Keep in mind that homework is 10%. So if you rush through for the 10% and then mess up on the 40% and the 50% part, then you're really making a big mistake. So again, homework is 10%, so I'm not saying don't do it. Just make sure you understand, again, cheating through that 10% means that you mess up on this part. I would rather have you do well on the quiz than anything else. Be sure to practice the material. Our test is right around, oh yeah, one more thing. The homework is also due December 15th, which means rushing through it now makes no sense, because you're going to get plenty of time to actually get that stuff done. But again, our test is right around the corner, and we are getting close to wrapping up all of the material that is on it. For my class, I know that we have one more day of work Monday, and then we get into our pre-test stuff. If your goal is to do well on a test, now is the time to begin preparing for it. Remember, I work like a coach, and I'm telling you that right now is the time to start kicking in. Even if you just start looking over your notes or rewatching some videos and bringing everything back to your memory, what typically happens when you do that is everything's going to start to come together over the next 4 or 5 days, which then puts you in a very good position for the test that's going to pop up. Outside of that, let's get started on the material, but first make sure you do this lesson credit so I can give you some immediate feedback on your work. So pause the video and go ahead and knock this out and bring it up so I can tell you what you did. Good luck.